Welcome to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. I'm Joe, joined by Mel.
Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment.
Quick shout out to a listener. Ben noticed when we took that week off, sent me a LinkedIn message and said, hey, what the heck's with that week off you guys took? So Ben, today we have to go pick up the kids in 40 minutes. We're going to shoot both episodes, our full length and our 10-minute Tuesday, because you inspired us to make sure that we don't miss a day. So thank you very much to Ben and all the listeners for tuning in. Today is a question and answer episode. We have thousands of questions that have been submitted to us, and I appreciate it. And if you want to get moved to the front of the line and you have a legit question, there's 2 ways you can do it, 3 ways you can do it. Visit us at strongfamilyproject.com and send an email. That's the most direct way to get your question answered. Second way you could do it is you go to our private Facebook group, which is Strong Family Life. Post it in there. We'll answer it there. We do a private video for the members there every week as well, or just drop it in the YouTube comments. The rest of our questions have come in from different online forms to us, and they all live on kind of a one-page PDF or one-page spreadsheet. So if you submit it the other ways, they'll stand out a little bit more. We'll be able to help you out as you get ready for Strong 2024. Here we go. We're going to get in as many questions as possible in the next 26 minutes. This is a great question from Jonathan, because we have talked about building confident children, and the question this time has a different spin to it. Mel, how do I build confident children when I'm not confident?
We've talked quite a bit. We even did a whole podcast about being role models. So I do think the primary focus needs to be initially on gaining confidence yourself, because you can't really, I think it's hard to teach it when you don't have it. And it's not even that you teach confidence, you role model confidence. So if you could tell your kid what to do to be confident, but if they watch you do it, and honestly, if you're not confident, it could even be that much more powerful for your kids to see that change happen in you as their parent. So I do think that it needs to start there, because I'm not sure how easy it would be to, or how successful you'd be at teaching them confidence if you yourself don't have it. Although I admire that you admit that's lacking for you, and that might need to be something to work on.
I agree with what Mel's saying, and the little nuance is you're not going to be able to role model confidence, like you said, if you're not confident, or at least you have the perception of yourself not being confident. But what you can absolutely role model, which a lot of other people can't, is the process of learning confidence. So together you have to become more confident, and it's easier in activities. We go like little rock climbing or whitewater rafting or something like that, where you can show confidence in that way versus communication level or like public speaking confidence is different, and that's a little harder to teach kids. So I would go with those one-off events where you can overcome something together and then have that experience and memory together, and you can both celebrate your growth and confidence, and I think that can be powerful as well.
And we've talked before about how kids help you stay accountable. So if you come up with a plan to do some kind of challenges where you have to overcome something and to gain some confidence, they could be your biggest cheerleaders too.
Al asks, just tell me how I can be a great uncle. So I do have a great idea for you, Al. Excuse me. So how to be a great uncle is when you're with your brother or sister's kids, build up your brother or sister in front of them. I think that is powerful and overlooked. So when you're playing with them, you can reinforce, hey, like I get to take you on to do this thing because there's such a good relationship with your parents, care about you. Like you're providing a third-party validation of their parents being good and awesome and caring. And so by you doing those activities with them, which is part of being a great uncle, I know the common answer is like, hey, do things with the kids and give the parents a break. Yes, all those things are cool. But that little communication piece is very powerful, where you take a second and say, hey, I'm very fortunate to be a sibling of your parent. Like talk and relate to them. Hey, you might have siblings. Actually, your mom or your dad, whoever it works out, is my sibling. Talk about it on that level and build up their parents in front of their children.
And you gave them a do, and I'm give more of a don't undermine the parents' values. Because I think that one of the worst things you could do is come in and start providing the kids some kind of experience that goes completely against what your brother or sister and their husband or wife are trying to do.
Great. There's been a lot of great examples where some other family member will come in and let's say you want to be a healthy family, and then they encourage your kids to eat poorly. Oh, I'm just the aunt, uncle, whatever, and I'm going to just bring pizza and crap food. And you get to do that. It's in business, they call it seagull management. You fly in, you crap all over everything, and you fly away. You're like, oh, that whatever your parents do, yeah, that's good for you then, but not right now. And you crap all over the situation, you fly away. Avoid doing that. Instead, reinforce their values and do so verbally so that the kids understand that there is someone else like them, and so they don't feel so lonely. All right, that was a good question. I appreciate you caring about somebody else's, your siblings' kids. Okay, let's grab this one. Why do other parents not value group activities like 4-H and Boy Scouts? I like things like 4-H and Boy Scouts. I also understand that it can be different families believe in different things, is what it comes down to. I was a Boy Scout, was not a part of 4-H. Doesn't mean that I didn't value the activities, just wasn't on my radar. We did more sports-oriented things as soon as Boy Scouts were done. Go ahead, Mel.
I think sometimes when I hear 4-H and Boy Scouts, it's not as mainstream. And maybe if you didn't have that kind of experience growing up, it's not really on your radar, or maybe it has like a bit of a stigma attached to it. But I think does come down to what your family's about. If your family is about getting more connected with nature, being outside, or if one of your children is really showing a strong interest in animal husbandry or whatever the case may be, then that's a great thing to get involved in.
Picked a real interesting one there. I think it is very reasonable that people value different things differently. And so while I enjoyed those things, I could also easily say, I don't understand why parents don't have more of their kids in sports, because I had an athletic background. I learned a lot of lessons. However, it might not be on their radar. It might not have been something the parents do. Don't really care about the activity. Our big thing is be intentional with what you choose so that the kids will grow up to be successful adults. And I purposefully don't say like contributing members of society, because there's varying opinions on whether you want them to assimilate strongly into a group or have the strong, brave side where they can pick and choose their own values. So they don't have to choose at a young age, join all these groups that other people did necessarily.
But I think too, different groups provide different values. So if you're on a sports team, I think that does provide quite a bit of value, because you're learning how to be on a team, how to work with people to achieve a goal. And I don't know a ton about 4-H, for example. However, I know you learn how to take care of the animals and you are learning really important skills. And for kids to be able to work with their hands, learn how to take care of something, there's a lot of value there.
I don't know if I have an answer for this one, but I'm going to ask it anyways to hear if Mel does. Coming in from Daytona Beach, Florida, parenting is the hardest job in the world. I wonder why there are no classes in high school for students to learn how to be better parents, especially if they come from dysfunctional households. And so it's one of those things for me that it's a great in theory. And Mel and I were guesting on another podcast, and we're reflecting on how little education we receive on like how to be parents and raise our kids. And that's why we created the Strong Family Path. So every family has a framework, but not necessarily great in theory, because I don't agree with what a lot of other parents do down to the nuance. Not that I don't like or think they do a bad job, but we are just different. So we want to do things a different way. And I remember back in the day, they basically all the parent education is they do that bag of flour, strap yourself like, oh, don't get pregnant early in health class. But I don't think a lot of people have it down, and that means that a lot of people can't teach it.
Yeah, I think it would make me a little nervous for that to be taught. However, I do think that there should be more education in, I don't say education, there should be some focus or intentionality before you have a family. Okay, you're going to have a kid. You're thinking about that. Hopefully I know that's not always planned necessarily, but let's say you're pregnant. You need to have some intentionality behind how you're going to raise this baby. And I don't just mean I'll stay up every other night or you're going to change a diaper every other night. That's not what I'm talking about. Actually raising the kids and what their character is going to be and what your family is going to be about, which is why the Strong Family Path is so great, because you can apply it to any family. We're not telling you to do this a certain way or to have our values. This gives you structure and strategy to be able to. So given that, I'd love to get this out there. And if you're hearing this and you know some young families, get this information to them so they can start being more intentional before they have kids. And then it becomes a bit more difficult to stop and have some time to think.
That's a good point. We get a lot of questions of when should I establish my family core values? As soon as possible. And for some people, it's when their kids are a little bit older because you're hearing about it for the first time. But if you know a young couple who is working on things, this would be a great time for them to have those core values before they bring children into the mix.
This came up at the podcast that we were on earlier, where, even it almost should be a prerequisite before you have kids or before you even get married, to make sure that not that you're on the same page, but that you know a little bit more about the other person, what they value. Coming up with values together is such a strong way to start a family.
How do I build confident kids despite social media? Question coming in from North Carolina.
The first and most obvious answer is to avoid social media as long as possible, because if you don't see it, it's not in your head. If our kids don't see that stuff, then they're not going to be thinking about it. Now, on the other hand, I'm not naive to the fact that, so our kids are not on social media, but I know that they hear about it at school. So having open communication about it is really important as well. But I do think first step, try to avoid it as long as possible.
So at its root, the social media issue is that it teaches people to search for external validation of what they believe, think, and how they act. How to combat that is to set your family core values and establish your children's ability to see value in themselves for who they are, and that when they think they're doing the right things, that is enough. Not that I need to post this, and if no one likes it, then I'm bad. You have to fight against external validation. It could be social media. It could be in groups. It could be in a lot of different organizations. So social media gets a bad rap, and I think rightfully so in a lot of ways. However, we're dodging the bigger issue, which is our kids aren't growing up confident. They don't have a lot of independence. They don't have a lot of things that they do in their life that gives them that feeling good dopamine release that they are validated for who they are. And then they throw them in a social media world and they start chasing likes and clicks, and it becomes very dangerous after that. So solve that external validation search, and you can fight off the negative aspects, or many of them, of social media.
I also think another thing to do is encourage in-person hangouts. So if your kid spends a lot of time on social media instead of spending time with people in person, I think that also kills confidence. So we try to encourage as much as possible for our kids to have friends over. Hang out in person. Don't hang out via texting or even phone calls. Try to have more in-person contact, because that is really important for them to learn how to communicate in person and gain confidence that way.
Coming in from Washington, Mel, this is a great one because you have been a therapist. I'd like to teach my kids emotional resilience without sounding like a therapist. I know many parents who do it like that, and kids don't respond well that way. Mine are 1 and 3, so learning this early would be great for me and my family. Great question. Appreciate anyone who's planning ahead.
Mm-hmm. I think, first of all, when they're little, it's really about just teaching them the names of feelings. And saying things like, how do you feel about that? I guess maybe that's what they're referring to as more of a therapist.
That's how I do when I
know.
How does that make you feel? Like, that makes me feel angry that you're talking to me like that. So I'm with her. I get this question.
But I think first and foremost, it's giving them the language to be able to use words to explain how they feel and not have to just act it out. So if a kid is upset about something, and then let's say they're sad, then we explain, when you cry and this feeling you're having right now, that's called sadness. Or let's say your kid's getting angry. When you make fists with your hands and your face is getting red, that's showing me that you're angry. So the first step really is just putting a name to the feeling. And the second piece, I think, for them to understand is, hey, you can have 2 feelings at the same time. So if you're mad at me because I told you couldn't have that cookie or whatever, you can still love me and be angry at me at the same time. And I think that's a really important thing that all people need to understand, and the earlier the better, that you're intelligent enough to be able to hold 2 feelings at the same time. And oftentimes when I was a therapist, I played this game. So how I taught the kids was we played Candyland, and every color on the Candyland path was a different feeling. So if you landed on red, you have to share a time you were angry. You landed on purple, you shared a time you were, happy or whatever. And it's just another way to get them to verbalize what they're feeling so that they don't start to have feelings and then not be able to express themselves. And even sometimes, like our 5-year-old will say he's scared, but really the context is showing me that he's nervous. So the older they get, anger can have a range of different, it can be a range of anger. So I try to make sure that I'm always just gently saying, I really think that you're nervous right now, not angry or not scared, excuse me. So just those little nuances as they get older, feelings get a little bit more complex.
Sounded like a real therapist right now, Mel. I'm just kidding. Because here, I think the nuance is that sounding like a mock therapist, like, how does that make you feel? And like talking like these sing-songy voices, I can understand kids having a negative reaction to that. However, thinking through it and asking them to explain their emotions more clearly, but speaking to them like they are a growing child that you love and care about and you want to grow into a successful adult, I think those are different levels. So I appreciate what you said. I think that's cool when you do the Candyland game because they're outside of that emotion so then they can speak about it with more of a clear mind.
And I don't think I used it in therapy, but it's really just you have to be where the kids are at. Kids like to play games. So I don't know, roll a dice and have each number refer to a feeling, whatever. But getting them talking about it is how you learn the language. And we all want our kids to become good communicators.
I think the piece that I'll just add briefly is that I try to get our kids to understand what their feelings are and can validate them. And I don't try to solve them all the time. And I think that's where parents try to duct tape things together a little bit too much, where they try to solve the problem, and that doesn't teach emotional resilience. I'll give you an example. Henry comes out of a basketball game. He's all frustrated that they lost. Asked him how he feels. I feel like crap. Okay, it's understandable to feel like crap. You didn't have a great performance. That's the whole conversation. And later we can talk about, hey, remember when you felt bad after the game? If you don't want to feel that again, what can we do? But that's a later conversation. It's just validating. Hey, I understand why you feel like that. I've lost too. It is not enjoyable. I'm not going to say, oh, it's okay. Whatever. It just is. To teach emotional resilience, you have to teach emotions, and that is okay. You can't just try to soften the blow of the emotions. It's okay to feel things.
And then I think that way they learn that this too shall pass. Like the feeling will subside, but in the moment, it doesn't always feel that way.
All right. Got a couple quick ones for you. How can I make sure I don't spoil my kids?
Don't spoil them? Okay, spoiling. This could very likely refer to stuff. And again, this could be role modeling too. If you are always buying stuff, the kids are going to want stuff because they really emulate what you're doing. And it's really just a choice. When we were deciding on our Christmas gifts for the kids, we really were just trying to find things that would help them move towards our values. So if it's something that's going to make them active, because we like to be active, we like to be outside and be healthy, then that's where we're going to spend the money. So it's not really like the amount of money, it's more the intention behind the gift.
Yeah, I will add that something we talked about on role modeling episode about finances, that your kids are going to come into your life when you're probably more successful, hopefully, than you were when you first got married, that your life is progressing. And the mindset to keep reminding yourself of is those early days when you were first buying items, maybe renting a house, figuring it all out. If the kids see you as a successful adult and you do all these fancy things and you live in a fancy house and they never saw those years, then they will start to expect that themselves, and they don't understand the grind that it takes to progress through the early 20s and early relationships or whenever it was for you. So keep that in mind. Like, spend money like those early years sometimes when the kids are around. Understand that it requires you to limit some of the things that you might not want to do. Oh, like maybe you shouldn't go out to the fancy dinner with the whole family right now. Maybe you should just hang out and play something more simple. A bit of advice from a friend was always take your kids camping, take your wife on the fancy trips, but take your kids camping so that they understand some of those other aspects of life that may have existed earlier for you that they never saw.
And simply, if whatever you're providing for them now, they will expect it when they're older. So we want to set them up for success, not for being house poor or whatever that phrase is.
Next one, let's do two more. Mal, how do I make them safe? My answer is you essentially don't, in the way that the question's answered. Like in a moment where they are, like, we can't duct tape all the corners in the world. We can't make things less steep for them. We can't make them like so living in a bubble, because that's a short-term safety measurement that is going to create a long-term negative, because you're going to expect the world to either treat them like that, or they won't have the skill set to be able to handle something harder. So instead of focusing on independent issues like that, I'd focus on the skills that it requires to be a resilient and strong person. That includes confidence. That includes some sort of value system, that they aren't putting themselves and looking for those external validations and getting in groups that make them unsafe because they're looking for other people to tell them that they're good because they don't have their own value system. Those things create safety issues in the long run. But if you're able to teach them what they stand for, who they are, help them build up the skill set, now they are keeping themselves safe, and it's not us keeping themselves safe. It's raising them up so that they can make the right choices to be safe themselves.
Aren't there also classes you could take maybe as a family to
Yeah,
physically be able to, right. I wanted to say a little bit more.
CPR, first aid.
Even this is silly, but Everett brought home these Bear Grylls books. He's writing novels now for kids. And obviously it's a made up story, but the stuff that Bear Grylls is teaching the kids in the book is not made up. But the one we're reading now is about how to survive when you're in a very cold climate and all those different things. So I told Everett, I'm like, the story is made up, but these things that this boy is learning are all real. So if you find yourself out in the snow, you got to keep your feet warm, keep your head covered. He's already learning some skills in terms of how to stay safe in the cold or whatever the case may be. So any kind of fun ways to be able to learn skills.
All right, Mel, you ready for the last one?
Yep.
How do I deal with a child that always has to get the last word?
That's a good one. The first thought that comes to mind is, I wonder how that came about, but maybe that's more the therapist in me. But handling it now, first of all, I think it's important to not lose your cool. So if this is the kind of communication pattern that's coming, I think you have to make sure that you can keep yourself in check and not lose it. Secondly, I think it sounds like this child might need some one-on-one time. And I don't mean let's sit down and have a face-to-face conversation. This child might need some one-on-one time with a parent to bond. Because I think a lot of times our kids act out more at home because they feel safe with us, but that could be pointing to some kind of struggle that they are going with, whether it's they're growing up and just trying to push the limits. That's why part of the path is the relationships in the home. We have to keep tabs. If one kid is struggling, we're going to have to pour some more resources into that kid.
Yeah, just to add to that, because that's well said, Mel, is you focus on having a low heart rate and you just don't care. You set the standard, you say what you have to say, and if they want to throw something in, then you just walk away. You're not going to get all upset. Why do you always have to get the last word? Let me finish. Who cares? If that last word thinks they're going to get them what they want, make sure that they know that did not get them what they want. And don't make that true for them. You just, okay. Yeah. And you just, you done? Or would you keep talking? We had this conversation. This isn't the way to communicate, but go ahead. And if you have something else smart to say, go ahead and say it. And then you say things in such a calm voice. It de-escalates a lot of that nonsense of the actual tactical communication strategies of flailing arms, both on adults and parents, trying to get the last word. Remove yourself from that, sit down, speak calmly, and it's a much more effective way to get across what you want. And it teaches them a tremendous amount of lessons that in the heat, you can cool down.
This is just to be a bit raw. This is happening between our older two right now. Sometimes the one will say something to the other on purpose to get them going. And I'm really working with them on just ignoring. If they're doing this clearly to get under your skin, you need part of emotional intelligence is being able to keep that low heart rate, like you were saying, be able to just walk away, even though the only thing you want to do is get back at them and just get the last word again. So if it's happening between your kids, this is a great time to try to teach them this communication skill. So it doesn't happen, it's not going to happen after one try, but I keep gently reinforcing it, constant gentle pressure. Hey, here's an opportunity for you to take the high road and ignore this. And then they can learn that communication skill.
Bonus question. Let's call this the Ben bonus question because he motivated us to get this done for you this week. What's your favorite part about being a parent?
Oh,
I've been asked this a lot. I'll let you think for a second.
Please do.
And it does change day to day because there are awesome things that happen on different days. Right now, I appreciate that it keeps me in tune with the value of play and seeing things for the first time. when you see a child explore the world, they explore in a different way than most adults. And we can learn from that. And I am back to riding mountain bikes with Henry. I'm back to shooting basketball in the house with Henry and Everett. I'm back to training and running hills with Logan. It's a lot of these things that as a kid I can remember going through, and now it's helping keep me young and engaged and playful and grounded to some of the most important things in life that I was starting to lose. Just an independent, I want to drive for my career, I want to drive for my business and do all those things. It helped me take a different perspective on my life in a time where I needed it the most.
I'm glad you say that it can change, because I feel like there's too many things to choose from. But I would have to say they keep things interesting and they give me a lot of purpose. So in this time in my life right now, being a mom is the biggest purpose I have, and I love that.
Said, let's land the plane. Visit us at strongfamilyproject.com, where you can get the 7 steps of the path. We talked a lot about core values, solving a lot of the questions that came up today, and you can grab that for free, as well as the big announcement last month is we released the Strong Family Guidebook, which is their step-by-step process to doing all these. It tells you a little bit more of our story, our struggles, so we can relate, and then how we were able to solve them. And it gives you that as worksheets in the second half of the book. It's on Amazon. We made it under $10 for the majority of families to be able to get their hands on and start working on this project right away. And again, it's the Strong Family Guidebook. Talk to you on the next episode.